When my father died, I was left with the house and a letter he said to read alone. In it, he revealed something about my mother's past that shattered everything I believed about my childhood. At the funeral, I confronted her, and the truth broke my family apart. I'm a 34M, born and raised in a small town in Ohio. My parents, Thomas and Ellen, were the kind of couple everyone admired growing up. High school sweethearts, married right after college, 2 kids, a nice house, the whole American dream setup. My sister, Natalie, is 2 years older than me, married with twins now, and she's always been the golden child. I was the quieter one, the kind who didn't stir the pot, just went with the flow. Until Dad died last month. When you lose a parent, people tell you about grief. The waves, the numbness, the long quiet after everyone leaves. What they don't tell you is that sometimes death doesn't just take someone. It gives you something back, too. Something you didn't ask for. Something that changes the way you see everything that came before. Dad had been sick for about a year. Pancreatic cancer. It was brutal. Watching him shrink into himself. Watching Mom pretend everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. It did something to me. I moved back home for the last 3 months. Took leave from work to help him out. The hospice nurse would come in twice a day, and I'd spend the nights on the couch in the living room, half awake to the sound of him breathing through the oxygen machine. 2 days before he died, he asked me to come sit by his bed. His voice was soft, almost like he was whispering through water. He handed me an envelope. Yellowed edges, sealed with old-fashioned wax. My name on the front. "Read it after I'm gone," he said. Alone. I didn't ask questions. I couldn't. His eyes were wet, and mine were worse. He passed that weekend. Peacefully, they said. But there was nothing peaceful about it. The funeral was set for the following Friday, and the house filled up with casseroles, awkward condolences, and family friends who wanted to tell me what a great man my father was. I didn't disagree, but I was distracted by that letter. That night, after everyone left, I sat in his office, the one he'd kept locked most of my life, and opened the letter under the desk lamp. His handwriting was shaky but clear. I don't think I'll ever forget the first line. "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive." My heart dropped. I don't even know what I expected. Maybe something about finances or a second mortgage, something boring and fixable. But as I kept reading, my stomach turned cold. "I didn't want you to grow up hating your mother or me. But you deserve to know where you come from. And you deserve to decide what to do with that truth." He wrote about how he met my mom, how they'd been trying for years to have children, how things between them started to break after a series of miscarriages. Then, one night, she disappeared for 2 days. When she came back, she said she'd stayed with her cousin in Cleveland. Dad said he believed her at first, until a few months later, she was pregnant. With me. He wrote about the doubts that started eating at him, how he tried to push them down because he loved her, because he wanted to be a father so badly. But eventually, he did a paternity test on me when I was 5. And I wasn't his son. The room went silent in a way I've never felt before. The kind of silence where even your own heartbeat sounds like betrayal. He wrote that he never told anyone, not even my mom. He couldn't. He said he raised me as his own because love is bigger than blood, and he meant that. I could tell, even through the paper. But near the end of the letter, there was another line that made my skin crawl. "If you want answers, you'll find them in your mother's closet. The blue box under the blankets." I didn't even think. I just went upstairs, still shaking, opened her closet, and found it exactly where he said it'd be. A baby blue box, tucked behind some old quilts. Inside, photos, letters, and a hospital wristband with my mother's name and a man's name I didn't recognize. The man's name was Robert Lane. I'd never heard it before. Not once. But there were photos of him and my mom, younger, smiling in front of a lake house. One photo had the date written on the back, October 1990, 9 months before I was born. I just sat there on the floor, shaking, flipping through evidence of something I didn't want to see. My mom had always been the moral compass of the family. The church volunteer, the one lecturing us about honesty and loyalty. And there she was, smiling beside some stranger who, according to a paternity test from 30 years ago, was my real father. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat in the living room until the sun came up, holding that letter like it might explain itself if I stared long enough. I kept hearing Dad's words in my head. "I didn't want you to hate her." But how the hell was I supposed to look her in the eye now? The funeral was later that afternoon. My sister had driven in with her husband and kids, and the house filled with that fake kind of warmth again. People laughing quietly, whispering condolences like confessions. Mom was in black, holding tissues, doing the grieving widow act so perfectly it made my skin crawl. When she hugged me before we left for the church, I froze. She whispered, "He'd be proud of you." And something inside me snapped. Because suddenly, all I could think about was that blue box. That name. That letter. I didn't say anything yet, but I knew I would. And I knew when I did, there'd be no coming back from it. I must have read that letter 100 times before I even processed what it was saying. Every line hit harder than the last. "You've always been my son," he wrote, "but not by blood." It didn't make sense at first. I reread it out loud, my voice shaking in that empty office. He explained how, during the years they were struggling to have kids, Mom started growing distant. Then one weekend, she told him she was going to Cleveland to visit her cousin. She came back 2 days later, acting like nothing had happened. 3 months later, she was pregnant, with me. He said he wanted to believe the timing was just luck. But after years of fighting and silence and pretending everything was fine, he couldn't shake the doubt. When I was 5, he got a paternity test behind her back. And the results confirmed it. I wasn't his biological son. The part that really destroyed me came near the end. "I didn't tell you or your sister because I didn't want you to hate her. She's still your mother, and I loved her enough to forgive what she did. But you deserve to know who you are. If you want answers, they're in her closet, under the blue blanket box." I just sat there staring at those words, feeling like the floor had vanished under me. It wasn't even anger yet, just disbelief. The kind that comes before you let yourself feel anything real. After a while, I stood up, walked straight to her room, and opened the closet. My hands were shaking. I pushed past the clothes until I saw it. The blue box, exactly where he said it'd be. My breath caught in my throat. I pulled it out and sat on the floor. Inside were letters, photos, and a folded hospital wristband. Her name was on it, Ellen Lane. Not Ellen Carter. Lane. The same last name as the man listed right below hers, Robert Lane. There were pictures of her and him. Younger. Happier. By a lake, at a cabin, sitting on a dock. One photo had the date written on the back, October 1990, 9 months before I was born. The letters were even worse. They weren't love letters. They were something between heartbreak and guilt. He called her Ellie. Said he missed her. Said he wished things could have been different. One of them ended with, "I'll never tell. But you'll always know." My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It was like my body hadn't caught up to what my mind was processing. I spent the rest of the night pacing the living room, trying to decide what the hell to do. Every time I thought about confronting her, I pictured her face, the tears, the guilt, maybe the lies she'd tell. I didn't even know what I wanted from her. An explanation? An apology? A reason? Nothing she said could make this okay. By morning, I'd barely slept an hour. I went through the motions getting ready for the funeral, feeling like I was floating outside my body. Mom was downstairs dressed in black, hair perfectly done, face pale but calm. She looked like she was playing a part. She gave me this soft smile when she saw me. "You okay, honey?" I wanted to laugh. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." We drove to the church in silence. Every mile felt like a countdown to something inevitable. The place was packed. Dad was loved, truly loved. People stood up to speak about what a kind, selfless man he was. My mom cried at all the right moments. My sister held her hand, and I sat there staring at the casket, wondering if he'd spent his last 30 years pretending everything was fine. After the service, people gathered outside. The sky was heavy and gray, like it was waiting to rain. Mom was surrounded by people offering hugs, condolences, gentle words. I just stood there, watching her thank them all with that calm, practiced tone. Something inside me broke then. I couldn't do it anymore. I walked up to her and said quietly, "Can we talk? Alone?" She looked confused but nodded. We went behind the church, near the old maple trees, where no one could hear us. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "What's going on?" she asked. I pulled the letter out of my pocket. Her eyes flicked down to it, and I swear, something in her face changed instantly, like she already knew what was coming. "Dad left this for me," I said. My voice was shaking, but I didn't care. He told me the truth. Her lips parted, but she didn't say anything. Just stood there frozen. "You cheated on him," I said. "And I'm not his son." The air between us went completely still. For a second, I thought she might deny it, call me crazy, tell me I misunderstood. But she didn't. She just started crying. Not loud sobs, just silent tears that made her mascara run. "Oh, Michael," she whispered. "He told you." "He didn't tell me," I said. "He left me a letter because he couldn't even say it out loud before he died. Do you get how messed up that is?" She reached for me again, and I stepped back. "It wasn't like that," she said. "I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. But your father forgave me. He loved you more than anything." "Yeah, and he had to raise someone else's kid while pretending it didn't destroy him." I cut in. My voice cracked on the last word. "You don't get to stand here acting like the victim." She looked gutted. I could tell she'd rehearsed this conversation in her head 1,000 times, but hoped it would never actually happen. "I was young," she said. "I thought." "You thought what?" I snapped. "That you could just lie your way through life and no one would ever find out." Her lip trembled. "I didn't want to lose you. Or him." "Well," I said, my throat burning. "You lost both." She broke down then, covering her face with her hands. People started glancing over, whispering. My sister noticed and came running over, asking what was going on. I didn't answer. I just handed her the letter. Natalie read the first few lines and froze. "Mom," she said quietly. "What is this?" Mom just kept crying. And that's how, in the middle of my father's funeral, the perfect little family everyone envied cracked wide open for everyone to see. The rest of the day was a blur. Relatives whispering, my sister yelling, Mom trying to explain through tears that it was so long ago. But none of it mattered. The damage was already done. That night, when everyone left, the house felt hollow. Like the ghost of who we used to be was still walking around, wondering what the hell happened. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know who I was anymore. That night after the funeral, I sat in the living room surrounded by cold coffee cups, half-eaten casseroles, and the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. My sister had left early after screaming at Mom in the driveway, yelling things like, "How could you do this to him?" And "You ruined everything." Mom didn't fight back. She just stood there, trembling, clutching the letter like it was a weapon turned against her. When the house finally went quiet, I walked into Dad's office again. The room felt different now, heavier somehow. Every photo, every book, every framed certificate on the wall felt like it was part of a life built on something fragile. I sat at his desk, staring at that letter, running my fingers over the indentations of his handwriting. He'd known for nearly 30 years. He'd lived every day of my childhood knowing I wasn't biologically his, and yet he never once treated me differently. I tried to replay every memory in my head, fishing trips, baseball games, the night he stayed up helping me build a science project, and I couldn't find a single crack in his love. That realization hit harder than anything else. He didn't owe me that love, but he gave it anyway, unconditionally. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. Mom was in the kitchen, eyes swollen from crying, hands wrapped around a mug like she was holding on for balance. When she saw me, she looked relieved and terrified at the same time. "Can we talk?" she asked. I wanted to say no, but something in me needed answers, even if I hated them. So I nodded. She sat across from me at the table. Her voice was quiet, shaky. "What your father told you. It's true. I made a terrible mistake. I was 26, and I thought our marriage was over. He'd started working all the time, barely spoke to me, and I was angry, lonely, stupid. Robert was someone I knew from college. We ran into each other at a reunion. One thing led to another." She trailed off, eyes wet. "You ran off with him?" I said. She hesitated, then nodded. "For a weekend. It was supposed to be closure, but it turned into something else. When I came home, I wanted to pretend it never happened. But then I found out I was pregnant a month later. Your father knew the dates didn't add up, so he tested me," I said. She nodded again. "He never told me he did, but I could tell something changed. Then one night, when you were asleep, he just held me and said, 'We're going to move forward. I love him like he's mine.' And he did. He really did. He never once used it against me, but I knew it haunted him." Her voice cracked on that last word, and for a moment, I saw her not as the perfect mother I grew up idolizing, but as a flawed, broken woman who made a choice she couldn't undo. I wanted to feel empathy, but mostly, I felt betrayal. "So who's Robert Lang?" I asked. She wiped her nose. "He lives in Michigan. We haven't spoken in decades. I don't even know if he's alive. When I found out I was pregnant, I told him I couldn't leave Thomas. He said he understood. He promised not to reach out. He never did. I leaned back in my chair, running my hands over my face. My whole life had just been rewritten in 24 hours. Do you even realize what you did to Dad? He spent decades loving someone else's kid, and you let him carry that secret alone. She swallowed hard. I know. I tried to tell him so many times, but he wouldn't let me. He said it would only hurt you. He wanted you to grow up in a happy home. I almost laughed. Happy home, huh? You call this happy? Her eyes filled again. I'm sorry, Michael. I can't undo it. I stood up, pushing the chair back harder than I meant to. No, you can't. But I can find out who I am. She looked up, startled. What do you mean? I'm going to find him, I said flatly. Robert Lane. If he's alive, he deserves to know. And I deserve to know. Mom's face went pale. Please, don't do that. You'll only make it worse. Worse, I said, almost laughing. How exactly does it get worse than this? She didn't answer, just sat there, shaking, staring down at her coffee like maybe it held a version of the past she could rewrite. I left that afternoon, packed a small bag, grabbed Dad's letter, and drove back to my apartment in Columbus. The whole drive felt surreal, like I was watching my life from outside the windshield. I couldn't get the image of my dad out of my head. His hands, his laugh, the way he called me kiddo. The man who raised me, taught me how to ride a bike, fixed my car, told me to be better than him. He was my father. No one could take that away. But still, there was this gnawing ache in my chest. The kind that only comes from needing to know why. Why did Robert walk away? Did he even know about me? Did he ever wonder? That night, I searched for him online. Robert Lane, Michigan. There were too many hits. LinkedIn profiles, obituaries, public records. I narrowed it down with the birth year Mom mentioned, and after 2 hours, I found a man who fit. Retired engineer. Lives near Traverse City. Married once, divorced. No kids listed. My hands were shaking when I clicked on his profile photo. He looked familiar. The shape of the jaw, the eyes, something in there looked like me. It's hard to explain what that moment feels like. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even relief. It was this cold, hollow recognition, like seeing a reflection you didn't know existed. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, hearing Dad's voice in my head again. Love is bigger than blood. But I couldn't stop wondering if blood still mattered. And when the sun came up, I decided I needed to find out for myself. No more secrets. No more pretending. I was going to meet the man who might have been my father all along. The next morning, I booked a flight to Traverse City. My heart was pounding the whole time, not from excitement, but from this tight, twisting knot of anxiety, anger, and curiosity. Every mile I traveled felt heavier than the last. I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I saw him, or even if I should say anything at all. When I landed, I rented a car and drove through streets lined with lakefront cottages, small cafes, and the kind of quiet neighborhoods that make you feel like you're walking through someone else's life. I had Robert Lane's address from public records, but as I got closer, I kept thinking about turning around. What if he didn't want to be found? What if this blew his life apart the way Mom's secret had blown mine? But I couldn't turn back. Not after everything. The house was modest, 2 stories, with peeling white paint and a garden overgrown with weeds. I parked down the street, took a deep breath, and walked up the path. My hand hovered over the doorbell for a second. Then I rang it. The door opened to a man in his late 50s, taller than I expected, hair graying at the temples, eyes sharp but tired. Can I help you? He asked cautiously. Hi, I said, voice cracking a little. My name's Michael Carter. I think you might be my biological father. His eyes narrowed. I don't think I understand. I held up Dad's letter, though I hadn't planned to. I know this is sudden. It's complicated. But my mother, Ellen Lane, had a relationship with you years ago. I was born a month after. My father raised me, loved me as his own, but he wanted me to know the truth. Now that he's gone, I need to know the rest. I need to meet you. For a second, he just stared at me, mouth slightly open. Then the color drained from his face. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, I said. Just let me in, and we can talk. He hesitated, then stepped aside. The house smelled faintly of old wood and coffee. We sat in the living room, and he motioned for me to go first. I don't even know where to start, I said. I just want to know why. Why now? Why all these years? He leaned back, rubbing his temples. I wish I could give you a simple answer, kid. I didn't even know about you. I knew your mom was pregnant when I saw her at the reunion, But she told me she was staying with her husband, and I didn't press. I don't know. I thought you'd have a good life, and I stayed away. I never expected this. You stayed away, I repeated, voice tight. While my dad raised me, loved me, while my mom lied. I know, he said quietly. I know what I did, or didn't do, doesn't matter. You've got a father who loved you, who sacrificed so much for you. I could never compete with that. Not then, not now. I couldn't look at him. I could only feel it. The anger, the confusion, the betrayal. So all this time, you just let it happen? You let me grow up thinking someone else was my dad. I never stopped thinking about you, he said. Every year I wondered. Every birthday, every Christmas. But I thought you'd be better off not knowing. And then your dad, he didn't want you to hate your mother. I wanted the same thing. And I'm just supposed to be okay with that? I snapped. Do you have any idea how much this destroys a person? How it shakes everything you thought about your life? He leaned forward, eyes pleading. Michael, I understand that. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling you my side. I was a coward, yes. I made mistakes. But you've got to understand something. Your father loved you fiercely. That's real. That's unbreakable. I sat back, exhausted. My mind was spinning. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, to shake him until he admitted why my life had been built on a lie. But another part wanted to just sit there and absorb that he existed, that at least this part of my life wasn't completely gone. We talked for hours. About mom, about dad, about the small moments he remembered from the photos in the blue box, about the regret, the what-ifs, the decades of silence. At some point, I realized I wasn't angry anymore, at least not entirely. I was shattered, confused, angry at some things, relieved about others, and terrified of what I was going to do with all this knowledge. By the time I left, night had fallen. Traverse City was quiet, the lake reflecting the moon like a mirror. I drove back to my motel, staring at the road. I couldn't stop thinking about mom, about dad, about my sister, about the funeral, about the blue box, about the letter, about everything. I knew when I went back home, nothing would be the same. Mom hadn't just lied about a fling. She'd hidden a secret that shattered the foundation of our family. Dad had protected me, raised me, loved me unconditionally, while keeping that secret buried under decades of loyalty. And now, knowing Robert existed, knowing he was out there, knowing part of me came from someone I'd never met. I didn't know what family meant anymore. But I did know one thing. I couldn't pretend any longer. I couldn't go back to a life built on lies. Not with mom, not with Natalie, not with anyone. The next confrontation, the next fallout, it was inevitable. And I wasn't going to run from it. I just had no idea how badly it was going to hurt. When I got back to Ohio, the house felt smaller, tighter, like it had been holding its breath since Dad died. Mom was sitting in the living room, staring at the carpet, her hands wrapped around a mug like she was trying to hold herself together. Natalie was upstairs with the twins, probably pretending everything was fine, the way she always did. I walked in, and Mom looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen, desperate. Michael, you're back. I didn't answer. I didn't want to start with small talk or fake concern. I went straight to the point. We need to talk. All of us. Now. She looked like she might collapse into the couch, and I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered the blue box, the photos, the letters, the lifetime of lies. I'm done pretending anymore, Mom. No more lies. No more half-truths. Everyone's going to hear the truth today. That got Natalie running down the stairs, eyes wide. Michael, what are you talking about? Mom, what's going on? I held up Dad's letter. You've all seen this yet? Probably not, because Mom kept it hidden. I've spent the last few days learning things about my life I should have known 34 years ago. And now you're going to listen. Mom opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Stop. Just stop. For 30 years, you lied. To Dad. To me. To Natalie. And now, Dad's gone, and I know everything. I know about Robert Lane. I know he's my biological father. I know you slept with him and then pretended nothing happened. The room went quiet, thick and heavy, like it had weight. Natalie's mouth fell open. Mom, she whispered. Is this true? Mom buried her face in her hands. Ah, yes. It's true. I was young. I made a mistake. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Not you, not Michael, not Thomas. I laughed, bitter, sharp. Never wanted to hurt anyone? Mom, do you know what you did to Dad? He raised me. loved me like I was his own, carried the secret like it was a scar on his soul. And you just hid behind your lies. For decades. Natalie took a step forward. Michael, that's not fair. Mom. No, Natalie, I said. It's fair. It's exactly fair. Do you know how it feels to look at every memory and realize half of it was built on a lie? Dad died thinking I'd never hate Mom for this. I might not hate him, but I don't know if I can forgive you. Mom's shoulders shook. Please. I'm begging you. I've lived with this guilt my whole life. I loved him. I loved you both. I just… You just what? I asked, voice low and trembling. You just wanted to pretend the truth didn't exist? You don't get to erase it now. Not after everything. Natalie sank into the couch, covering her face. I can't. I can't believe this. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because she wanted to protect us, I said, my voice cracking. Protect us from the truth she created herself. Mom tried to speak again, but I held up my hand. No. Let me finish. I went to Michigan. I found him. Robert Lane. My biological father. He's real. He exists. And now I know everything. Every secret you buried. Every lie you told. It's all out in the open. And do you know what? It doesn't make me less your son. But it does make me angry. And hurt. And I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Mom started crying harder, the kind of quiet sobs that make your chest ache. Michael, I'm sorry. I can't fix it. I can't. I've lived every day regretting it. Please, please forgive me. I don't know if I can, I admitted. I want to. I want to believe the person I loved as my mother is still there. But this is too much. Natalie was still quiet, staring at the floor. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. I don't know if I can forgive her either. I've always looked up to her. I wanted to be like her. And now, I don't even know who she is. Mom collapsed onto the couch, burying her face. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know that. I wanted you both to have a family. I wanted you to have a home. I thought hiding the truth would protect you. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I stared at her, trying to process the raw, shattering truth. The perfect family everyone envied was gone. The reality was messy, ugly, and irreparable. I realized then that love, Dad's love, Mom's love, didn't erase mistakes. It didn't fix betrayal. It didn't protect us from the truths that hurt the most. We sat there in silence, the weight of decades pressing down. Natalie eventually went upstairs, leaving me and Mom alone. I didn't hug her. I didn't say I forgave her. I just walked to my room, grabbed a suitcase, and left. I stayed with friends for a few days, trying to breathe, trying to wrap my head around the family I'd thought I knew. I called Robert again, talking for hours, learning about him, asking questions I'd always wanted to ask my father. He didn't replace Dad. He couldn't. But he helped me piece together the fragments of who I was. Mom called once. I didn't answer. Natalie texted me. Short messages, careful words. I didn't respond. I needed space. I needed to exist outside the shadow of their lies. Weeks later, I visited Dad's grave alone. The wind was cold, the sky gray. I knelt, tracing the letters in his headstone. I know the truth now, Dad. And I love you. I'll always be your son. But everything else, I have to figure out on my own. And I realized that families, blood or not, aren't perfect. They're messy, they're broken, and sometimes the people you trust the most hurt you in ways you can't forgive. But even in the rubble, even in the betrayal, there's still love. Love that doesn't erase pain, but reminds you that you survived it. I don't know if Mom and I will ever repair what's been broken. Natalie might never forgive her either. But I do know one thing. I will never pretend again. I will face every truth, no matter how ugly, and I will decide for myself what family means. Because that's all Dad wanted. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. If you made it all the way to the end, thanks for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the story, consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. It helps me share more stories like this. Thanks.